Okay, so it's time to make another video about questions I've been getting a lot. And here's one that was not common until very recently, but it's basically you've got an 8-lug truck that you want to use, like a GM 2500, 3500, and you want to use the Dodge axle. And a lot of people are talking about, well, do I need to use the GM hub assembly in the Dodge axle? And we're going to talk about that now. The GM and the Dodge are both 8 on 6.5 bolt pattern. So technically you don't need to use the GM hub assembly if you want. And also the Dodge still uses a 55-tooth ABS sensor, just like the GM does. So you don't even necessarily need to use the GM hub for that reason, because you just need to get the ABS equipped hub assembly, and then you can use the Dodge one on the Dodge axle without having to change any kind of brake caliper, brake rotor, any kind of spacing out of the caliper like we have to do on the 6-lug to use 6-lug on the Dodge axle. So you actually can just use the Dodge axle in its own configuration. So first things first, we've got a Dodge Dana 60 hub assembly here, and you can see that it's got a hub diameter of just a little over 4 3/4 inches. Now the Dodge mount the rotor to the back, and the wheel studs actually capture the brake rotor to the back of this hub. So when we're going to measure the distance from the brake rotor mounting surface to the flange, the mounting flange, we're actually going to go from this side, not this side like you would on one that has a brake rotor that slides over the studs. 2.3 inches exactly from the mounting flange to the rotor. And what we'll do is we'll measure just easily bolt to bolt this way, 3.875, so 3 7/8. Let's see if it does it the same, if it's a square. Yep, looks like that's 3 7/8 this way, so it's a square. Okay, so this is from a GMT 800 1-ton Chevy. Now, they are both the same 33 splines down in there. And let's see. Looks like the same. Now, you may see what I'm doing here. I'm actually measuring from the far side of this hole to the far side of that hole rather than trying to center it, because if you eyeball center, sometimes it's hard to get it exactly center. But if you go far side to far side, you still have a hard edge. And as long as they're the same diameter of hole, that will give you the same measurement center to center. Yep. Okay. Now, take a look at this. GMT 800 8-lug. It's got a brake rotor that slides on from this side. So we're going to measure this way. And then, of course, we'll measure the inner diameter of the hub, 4.60. Now, what's important to note here is that we've got basically the same measurement from here to here as the Dodge had from here to here, which means that if you were to try to put a Dodge rotor mounted to the back of this, you'd capture it with the studs like you would on a regular style. That's only 1.87 inches there to there. So you would be way out of alignment on the brake rotor. So you're thinking, oh, well, that's the same measurement from here to here. as it was on the Dodge from there to there. Well, as soon as you put the Dodge rotor here on this side, first things first, the Dodge rotor's got much larger holes. Okay, so it'd be sloppy on these studs. See the shoulder? That shoulder's supposed to hold the the rotor from moving around. That should be fairly snug in the rotor. Also, it's going to be incorrect alignment based off the thickness of the rotor. So what is a rotor thick? 1/4 inch, 5/16 of an inch thick. It's now going to be that 5/16 of an inch out of alignment as soon as you put it on from this side. So you can't make the Chevy unit bearing work very conveniently that way either. And last but not least, I got one that was kind of both. The Chevy hub, but it does capture the rotor from the backside. And that's a GMT 400 8-lug rotor, 8-lug hub assembly. So let's measure the bolt here. Yep, same. Now let's measure the distance from here to here. And take a look. It's the exact same as the Dodge. So basically, if you wanted to run it like a Dana 60 from like a 1994 to 2001 Dodge Ram, you are going to have a hard time finding those that had ABS. Most of those, in my experience, did not come equipped with ABS on that truck, so they don't have the sensors built into the hubs. A couple ways they did that. There was, some of them had an axle shaft that had a sensor ring, a reluctor ring around the actual stub shaft, like this one, and then an external sensor that read on it. And some did have the ABS sensor built into the unit bearing like the Chevys, but they're rare. In fact, you may notice that the hub assembly that I purchased to measure did not have it because no one in town stocked the ABS version. So basically, if you want to have Chevy ABS on your Dodge Dana 60, you need to use a GMT 400 hub with the Dodge rotor, and that'll make sure that the rotor is located in the correct spacing offset from the caliper, so it's centered in the caliper, and it'll be the correct diameter for the caliper. So you just use the GMT 400 hub assembly with the Dodge Dana 60 brake rotor in the Dodge Dana 60 caliper, and it should work great.